be real for a sec. No one really enjoys the whole getting older thing, right? Especially when it starts to feel like the bills are going to be bigger than the birthday cake, if you know what I mean.
Oh, I hear you. And we're not just talking about splurging on that extra slice of cake either.
Right. We're talking about the often overlooked, but always looming elephant in the room, the cost of care as we age, specifically long-term care.
It's a conversation a lot of folks avoid, probably because it feels a little, well, daunting to say the least.
Totally. But avoiding it doesn't make it go away, right? That's why we're tackling it head on in this deep dive. We're not about doom and gloom here.
We're all about arming you with the knowledge and tools to actually feel empowered about your future.
100%. Knowledge IS power. And today, we're putting that power right into your hands by diving into a trend that's been making waves across the U.S. long-term care payroll taxes.
You know, you've probably heard whispers about this already, especially with states like Washington taking the plunge. And, well,
Where Washington goes, California often follows, am I right?
exactly. Meaning this could soon be hitting a lot closer to home for many of our listeners.
So let's get right to it. What exactly are these long-term care payroll taxes?
In a nutshell, is your state government stepping in saying, hey, we're going to create a long-term care insurance program, and guess what? It's going to be funded directly through your paychecks.
So mandatory deductions to help cover potential care costs down the line. It sounds, at least on the surface, like a good idea in theory. But I think a lot of people are wondering what's the catch.
Right. It's not exactly a free ride, is it? Washington State has been kind of like the guinea pig in all of this with their WA Cares Fund program.
Yeah, let's unpack that. What's the financial impact looking like there? How much are people actually paying for this?
All right, so in Washington, we're talking an additional 0.58% payroll tax. Now, I know percentages can sound a bit, well, vague, so let's break it down. If you're earning, say, $50,000 a year, that's an extra $290 straight out of your paycheck annually.
$290. That's a lot of lattes. Or, a nice chunk towards a vacation. It might not feel like a huge amount month to month, but when you add it up over the
It
years...
starts to feel a bit more significant, doesn't it?
Exactly. And that brings us to the big question. What are people actually getting for that money? $290 a year over a lifetime isn't going to cover a team of private nurses, is it?
You're catching on quickly. Here's the thing, and this is where it gets a little, shall we say, concerning for some folks. The maximum lifetime benefit you can actually receive from the WA Cares Fund is $36,500.
$36,500, that's it. That's all you get for your entire life.
That's the current cap.
Wow, okay. Well, I'm no mathematician, but that doesn't sound like a whole lot, especially considering how expensive long-term care actually is.
You're telling me. And that's just for Washington. Remember, California is still figuring out their program, so who knows what those numbers will look like.
Right. There are still a lot of unknowns there. But let's put this into perspective for a moment. The average monthly cost for just an assisted living facility, not even round-the-clock care or anything fancy, in Washington state is around $5,000.
So do the math that $36,500 from the WA Cares Fund is going to last you, what, maybe 7 months, if that?
To 7 months. And that's if you even qualify for the full amount, which isn't always guaranteed. Suddenly, this whole thing feels a little less like a safety net and a lot more like, well, a drop in the bucket compared to the potential costs you might actually face.
Right. And that's the big gotcha that a lot of people miss. These state programs, while well-intentioned, are designed to provide some level of assistance, but they're definitely not a comprehensive solution to the long-term care puzzle.
Okay, so we've uncovered a potential flaw in the system. These state-run LTC programs might leave folks high and dry when they actually need serious care. So what's the alternative? I've heard whispers about an opt-out strategy using private long-term care insurance. Is that the secret weapon in this whole equation?
It certainly can be. It's like the VIP line for those who want more control over their long-term care journey. And yes, in some cases, like in Washington, having a qualifying private LTC insurance policy allowed residents to opt out of the WA Cares Fund payroll tax altogether.
Wait, back up a second. You're telling me you could completely sidestep this payroll tax just by having the right kind of private insurance. That feels like a game changer, especially if you're not convinced by the limited benefits of the state program.
Exactly. And it's logical if you think about it. The state benefits from a financial perspective, because if you have private coverage, you're less likely to tap into those state-funded resources later on.
Okay, that makes sense. But how widely known this opt-out option? It feels like one of those things they tuck away in the fine print, hoping nobody notices.
You're not wrong. It highlights why staying informed is crucial. Knowledge is power, especially when navigating the often murky waters of taxes and healthcare.
Amen to that. So let's say someone's listening, maybe in California, bracing for the potential LTC tax wave. What's the smart move here? Is grabbing a private LTC insurance policy the way to go?
Don't hit the panic button just yet, especially in California where things are still being ironed out. But exploring private LTC insurance is definitely a savvy move for those who want to take control of their future care.
Let's dive into the specifics then. What makes private LTC insurance potentially a better deal than these state-run programs?
Customization is a big one. Forget the one-size-fits-all approach of state programs. With a private policy, you're in the driver's seat. You tailor coverage to your unique needs, concerns, and budget.
So if I'm someone with a family history of needing serious care, I can factor that in and beef up my policy accordingly.
Precisely. Higher benefit amounts, shorter elimination periods, that's the time you pay out of pocket before coverage kicks in, even inflation protection to keep pace with rising costs. It's all about having options.
So more flexibility and potentially way better payouts compared to the state's offerings. What else is there?
Don't forget the type of care you might need. State programs are often restricted to specific facilities or services. You might only be covered for a nursing home, but what if you'd prefer in-home care?
Right, because staying in your own home can make a world of difference in terms of comfort and quality of life.
Exactly. Private LTC insurance can cover a wider spectrum of care, from home health aides to assisted living to those specializing in memory care. You have the freedom to choose what aligns with your values and preferences.
It's really about maintaining independence and dignity as you age, and choice plays a huge role in that.
You've hit the nail on the head. It's about having options and feeling empowered in a situation that could easily feel overwhelming.
We've painted a pretty rosy picture of private LTC insurance, but let's be upfront with our listeners. This is still insurance we're talking about. It comes with premiums,
Yeah.
paperwork, the whole nine yards.
That's the reality. It's about managing risk, making informed decisions about your future, and understanding what you're signing up for.
So it's about weighing those costs and benefits and figuring out if private LTC insurance makes sense for your specific situation.
It's all about personalized planning.
Exactly. So let's say you're out there listening right now, maybe even picturing yourself kicking back, enjoying that retirement life, and you're thinking, okay, this all sounds kind of scary, but how do I know if this whole long-term care thing even applies to me?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And
Yeah.
honestly, there's no one-size-fits-all answer. It really boils down to your individual needs, your risk tolerance, your financial goals. It's personal.
Okay, so let's break that down a bit. What are some of the key things someone should be thinking about when making this decision about private LTC insurance?
Well, let's start with the obvious: age and health. Generally speaking, the younger and healthier you are when you purchase LTC insurance, the lower those monthly premiums will be.
Makes sense. Less risk for the insurance company.
Exactly. But it's not just about your current health. Family history plays a role too. If you have parents or grandparents who needed extensive long-term care, that could increase your own chances down the line.
Ah, so genetics can be a factor, just like with any other health concern.
Right. Then there's your overall financial picture. Do you have assets you want to protect? A long-term care event can drain savings and investments incredibly fast. Having that insurance can provide some much-needed peace of mind, knowing you've got a buffer.
And for many, it's not just about protecting their own assets, but also about not wanting to burden their loved ones.
Absolutely. Nobody wants to feel like they're putting their family in a difficult financial position.
So we've got age, health history, finances. What else should be on that checklist?
Don't forget about your career stage. If you're young and just starting out, you've got more time to plan and save. But as you get closer to retirement, securing that coverage becomes more urgent.
Makes total sense. And I imagine where you live matters too, right? I mean, the cost of care in, say, New York City is probably a tad different from a smaller town.
You're spot on. Geography is huge. Care in those big, bustling cities is definitely going to cost you more than in a more rural area.
It's a lot to consider, like a big, complicated puzzle.
It can feel overwhelming for sure. That's why it's so important to have these conversations, to gather information and make choices that feel right for you, not just what some random article tells you to do.
Well said. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about numbers and policies. It's about taking control of your future and planning for a time when you might need a little extra support.
It's about living your life to the fullest, knowing you've considered the possibilities and made choices that align with your values.
Exactly. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of long term care, remember that the landscape of healthcare is constantly changing. The decisions we make today have a ripple effect on our future well being and our financial security.
Stay curious, stay informed, and never be afraid to ask questions.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And hey, if you're in California and want to get a head start on exploring those private LTC insurance options, we've got you covered. Give Helen Hou a call at 408-909-5865. She really knows her stuff when it comes to navigating this whole thing.
A little proactive planning goes a long way, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Until next time, everyone, happy diving.